Hello, YouTubers. I want to welcome you to another edition of new album releases. In particular, my newly released 361st album called Modern Guitar, Volume 361, Red Oxide. And we can take a look at the album cover here. Okay. And basically what this was a, public domain photo of what looks like a kind of a cloudy red cloud. Something you'd find in a background of of a computer or whatever. And as I did a little bit of research, I thought, well, that's, definitely reminds me of Red Oxide. So that's the name of the album. Now, for those who aren't familiar, basically I play guitar and do guitar loops done on the fly, which is basically where I play something, record part of it, and it plays back. And then I layer things over it, other guitar parts and that kind of thing. I also emulate bass on guitar and use guitar synthesizers and things to get different sounds. And all my material, including the recorded tracks on these albums, is improvised on the spot. In other words, nothing's really worked out ahead of time. Right? So basically, just free improvisation. Not only improvising during the song, but improvising the song itself. But all my music's instrumental. And I do that because you can really find some magical moments that you wouldn't have thought of otherwise. And quite frankly, if you played the same thing, over and over and over and over again, well, it gets kind of monotonous, a little boring. Anyway, so here it is, my 361st album, and it is a guitar album, most definitely. However, it's not the kind of generic, shredding, noodling, guitar solo type things at all, in fact. And remember, my interest really is kind of creating what I call film music. Kind of music that you would find in a film, perhaps. Right? Creating moods and atmospheres and those kinds of things. So here we've got basically 9 tracks, and so we'll go through them a little bit and try to give you my insights on it here. And the very first track kind of sets the mood for the album, and we can take a listen to it here. opening of the album, the beginning, and kind of setting that mood and atmosphere. And by this time, I'd used guitar synthesizer pedals on the previous album. However, on this one, I'm also using the guitar synthesizer pedal, but I have a better handle on them than I did previously, because I had just gotten the pedal. And also you can hear the kind of bass emulation here. Now, we're listening to it on these little tiny monitors, right? So keep that in mind. If you put it in a stereo, it would sound a little better. But anyway, so let's hear a little bit more of that. And this theme that you just heard will be kind of repeated on the last track, which is actually part 2, right? That kind of closes out the album. Alright, but for right now, let's take a listen to track 2. So obviously it has that kind of melody, that that repeats and so on. I think I made a video, a music video of this track. And what I like about it is the space. Not everything is jumbled up, so you can really hear the individual parts. And when you're doing a lot of looping, it's very easy to get, too many ideas together where there's not a lot of space and you can't hear the individual parts. Alright, let's listen to a little bit more of that. There's some little guitar synthesizer parts in there. Now, if you heard some crackling, it's actually my little monitors. They have tiny little speakers, so I'm kind of pushing them hard here. Alright, let's move on to track 3. This track, what I really like are those chords, right? Where it's treated more like a piano than it is a guitar, where you're actually plucking the chord, rather than strumming it or that kind of thing. All right, let's take a listen. So that's a really big sound, actually. You know, we've got the layer of bass, layer of the chords, and then on top of that, kind of a ambient, kind of guitar solo type thing over it. Alright, let's move on to the next track, track 4. Okay, now that track, yeah, I really like that track because it's something different. Kind of the chords are also the melody, if you like, right? And I also like the way that there are a couple of dissonant chords in there, right? So they're basically triads of, different chords and things. And then of course you have the bass, right? Which hadn't been there really on previous albums. Or it had been there, but going through a guitar speaker, so you could hardly hear it anyway. Alright, so let's move on to track 5 here. Of course, you can't have an album without my favorite delay sound, so here it is. So there's the delay track, and then we can fast forward it a little bit here. See if I added some other layers. Yeah, I really like this track because you have the delay guitars, which is one of my favorite sounds, but then over it you have this kind of they're not chords, but they're kind of like, they're like chords. You play the notes, but you let them ring out. It gives you a real nice sound, and you can hear that here if you listen to the guitar over the delays. So you can hear that over the delay guitar. that was kind of a reverse guitar. You play it and actually what you played starts to be played in reverse. A kind of interesting sound. Alright, let's go to track 6. So there you got a huge bass sound. And in fact, my little tiny monitors can barely handle it. You hear a little crackling. I should probably turn it down a little. In any case, and then you have the guitar with the main riff of the track, if you like. Okay, and we can fast forward that a bit. So there, of course, we have the bass, the kind of rhythm guitar, and then I had an extra guitar, right? Adding kind of a ambient kind of lead sound, and then the synthesizer sound. But what was interesting about the synthesizer sound is that it was actually they would swell in, but also played in reverse. Right, so that gives it a real interesting sound. You know, I tried to, if you listen closely, playing some harmonics. You know, trying to get that same kind of ambient swell kind of thing. And it just didn't work. It just sounded kind of like, well, yeah, okay, there are harmonics, they're there. Whereas the keyboard really makes a huge difference. You know, playing backwards and swelling, you know, swelling in. Okay, we can fast forward a little bit. Interesting track, really. Okay, let's go to track 7. There we go. Of course, the little monitor, you know, can barely handle this track either. And the thing to notice here, I think, is you've got the little guitar line, right? But then the bass comes in. And I'm really pleased with the bass sound because this is using little crossovers, right, that cut my guitar signal into a low end and a high end. the high end going into guitar amps and the low end going into a bass amp. And you can hear that here, that you can hear the bass very clearly, and it really does kind of sound like a bass, right? Though it's just played on the guitar, using octave pedals and that kind of thing. So let's fast forward that a little bit. So they're adding a guitar playing over that little riff, at the beginning, right, which plays throughout the track. Alright, let's move on to track 8. Okay, alright, now I can tell you, remember, my focus was really kind of doing film music, if you like, music that you would find in a film. This is definitely one of them. Also, just finding different ways of using the synthesizer, guitar synthesizer pedals. So we can hear that here. Notice the bass as well, right? Going through the bass amp, you can hear it quite clearly here. So on top of the bass sound is the keyboard sound. Fast forward it here. Okay, and there you've really got 2 tracks of guitar, and what I like about it is that I'm using modes there, obviously, and using some chord shapes I don't usually use. So this was a chance for me to use them, and I think it worked out pretty well. And also, the 7 tracks prior to track 8, which we just heard, right, are definitely lighter than the 8th track, which is kind of the climax of the album, if you like, for lack of a better word. Move on to the last track, track 9, which is part 2 of track 1, just to close out the album. There you go, that's the album, Red Oxide. Now, keep in mind, I just cut out little parts of it. When you actually listen to the entire album, it flows very smoothly from one track to the next. Now, I will say I know that there's a track on there, and if you listen really closely, I was just playing on my couch here, and, well, I had left the TV on, and you can kind of hear it in the background. But actually, it sounds really, really decent. I mean, I play it through stereos and things, and it's very, very nice. It's not very distracting. And these little monitors don't do it justice because of they kind of crackle and things. Because, the speaker's only that big, so, especially on the low end part. But I found that on this album, the low end was a big improvement on previous albums, where I was running just the bass guitar through the, guitar amp. So there's a lot of good things. I also think I got a pretty good handle on the guitar synthesizer. A lot more than in the past anyway. So for those reasons, really, I'm really pleased with this album. I think it has some good musical ideas in it. And it's really enjoyable to listen to. So, just for my listening pleasure, I mean, I definitely like this album for sure. Just because it has varying musical ideas, as I mentioned. Alright, so there you go. There's volume 361, Modern Guitar, Red Oxide. And it's already been released here, so you can find it on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, so on and so on and so on. Alright, very good. See you next time. Okay, bye.